We gather here today to honor the service of our veteran, Charles King, Jr. If you have not already silenced your cell phones, please do so at this time. Today's honors will consist of the firing of the volleys, the playing of taps, and the folding and presentation of the flag. We ask all who are able to please stand during the firing of the volleys and the playing of taps. Please note that the volleys may be very loud for some. Current and former military members may render the proper hand salute. All others may place their hand over their heart. At the conclusion of taps, please be seated during the folding and presentation of the flag. Thank you. Please stand and welcome the United States Army. Thank you. You may be seated. On behalf of the American Legion Post 31 in Salinas, they would like to offer this to you as a remembrance of the volleys that were fired today.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Thank you to United States Army, Post 31 American Legion in Salinas, and Mr. Heston for rendering the honors, as well as our chapter writers today. Thank you guys so much for being here for the family. This concludes the military portion of our service. At this time, in the next few minutes, we will have Angie, Candace, and Randy coming up to share.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to everyone for your sincere and heartfelt condolences expressed in your attendance today. I also wish to extend a huge thank you to my daughter Candace, who single-handedly pulled all the stops by planning, organizing, and scheduling today's gatherings. Hats off to you, Pumpkin. Your beloved dad and I are so incredibly proud of you. And now to the love of my life. 21 plus years of United States Armed Forces, served primarily in the Army Aviation Branch, a Vietnam veteran, Staff Sergeant King, Charles King, Charlie, Honey, Poppy, and Daddy. Always friendly and outgoing, and the first to lend a helping hand to his fellow men and women. Married for 22 years, unmarried for another 22 years, yet closer than ever before. Who could possibly resist his mischievous little crooked smile and his always incredible sense of humor? For 44 years, our love and respect for one another was deeply mutual, shared with our smart and beautiful daughter Candace. And I know that you are the first to greet me at the pearly gates once I crossed the Rainbow Bridge, with open arms to be united to eternity with the love of my life. Thank you.
I'm not going to be as formal as my mom. I kind of took my dad's sense of humor, and when I was writing out this speech, I was thinking of how I could memorialize my father in just a few minutes. And I kept remembering the only reason why he agreed to this was because there was a party afterwards. All right, it's the truth. That's Charlie, the man who was always ready for a good time and a joke or a story. So have you ever heard the story that my father told of how he first met me? One, I'm sorry you heard the graphic detail of my gastric system. Two, each time my father told someone the story, the projectile kept getting further and further away until my father was across the hall when I ruined his shirt. My father loved to share his memories, each more fantastic than the last. That's my dad. He was larger than life. The man where you could say his name anywhere and he was known. No one ever had to say, you know, Charlie. Charlie, Charlie. Like, somehow saying somebody's name twice makes you remember better. I cannot confirm or deny that I used my dad's name to get out of a traffic ticket once or twice when I first learned how to speed in the 1990 Chevy Cavalier that he gave me. My father absolutely loved people. He had a way of making you feel like you were the most important person in the world when you were with him. Something my dad taught me about people was to be kind and fair. It did not matter who you were, where you came from, or what your circumstances were. Everyone deserved kindness. He would be the first to welcome you, and he would be the last to leave when you needed help. My dad brought people together because of this, as you can tell here today, and I sincerely thank everyone for coming. He had a way of letting you know he was thinking of you, from sending flowers to being available to work on a small problem or a large one for that matter, loaning tools or just to have lunch to shoot the breeze. He was there for you no matter what. My dad also taught me the value of hard work and doing it right the first time. Coming from a man who spent 20 years in the United States Army, he enlisted at the age of 17. Doing 5 years of combat in Vietnam and earning several accolades throughout his military career. Coming from a man who knew the grind of starting multiple businesses, my dad was a subtle, hardcore badass. I know he was hardcore because when I worked for him, every time I broke a spark plug, I had to clean and wax an airplane. One spark plug equaled one airplane, and that's a little extreme if you ask me. There were a decent number of clean aircraft at the Watsonville airport during the late 90s, until I got it right. Work ethic bar none. He showed up, even the next day after a really good time at Zuniga's, now known as Ella's. Another lesson I took from my dad was to keep going. When all hell breaks loose, control what you can and keep moving forward. The amount of adversity my father faced in his lifetime, he would always keep pressing forward, no matter the situation. You can't do anything about the past. What's done is done, he would always tell me. So we do it to it, meaning let's get moving. Part of how my dad pressed forward was being a practical joker and trash talk. Y'all know how he would like to trash talk. He loved having a good laugh. He told me my first dirty joke, which I still remember to this day, and I would repeat for everyone, but my mom's here, so it will have to wait. My father was a humble man, but at the same time, he was a very proud man, and he was stubborn as hell. He was so fiercely proud of his family and friends. He loved his time with you. My father would champion for you to everyone he could while being quiet about his own achievements. He was there for you, even when you didn't know. Family meant the world to my father. And if you were his friends, you were his family. No matter where you were, coming or going, he would always tell you, I'll be here. And he was. My grandparents spoke the world of my father. His German is very good for an American, they would always say. Every time we spoke about my father, they would say, Charlie ist ein guter Mann. Translated to, Charlie is a good man. And they are right. Charlie was more than a good man. He was a great man. And we are all, in our own way, better for knowing him. My dad is probably telling me to stop talking right now because he's got a Jack and Coke waiting for him at Ellis. So I know he's got a half smile and he's secretly thankful that you are all here to celebrate with us and pay your respects. So with that, I'd like to invite Randy to come up and say a few words. And if we have time, we'll open up the mic for a few more folks.
Very good.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, Candace. Nice to see you. Glad to see so many people came out today. Important man, Charlie King. As Candace was mentioning, where I come from, nicknames are everything. And Charlie didn't need a nickname. He brought his own. Everybody knew him. It wasn't Charlie, it wasn't Charlie King. We could go to anywhere in California, and all you pilots out there, you could attest to this, that wherever you went, people would say, oh, Watsonville, do you know Charlie? Absolutely, absolutely. Born February 2nd, 1948 in the state of New York. Guy shows up to the enlistment at 17 years old. 17 years old, I was still trying to figure it out underneath the bleachers. 17 years old, Candace had mentioned, hey, he was ready to go. There was a world conflict going on at the time. So he goes down to the recruiter on November 12th, 1965. What's going on in 65? Well, that very day, a gentleman by the name of Ferdinand Marcos was elected as the 10th president of the Philippines. Get Off of My Cloud by the Rolling Stones was number one in both America and the United Kingdom. And of course, 7 months prior to that, I was born, which I reminded Charlie about often. Basically, he goes to basic training. After that, he goes and gets trained as a helicopter crew chief for the UH-1 Iroquois. Most of us know that as the Huey. 3 months later, he's sent to Vietnam with the 2nd Battalion, 18th Infantry, 2nd Brigade of the 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One. Anybody with the Big Red One here today? Anybody? Okay. Very historic unit. Very badass, as I believe Candace mentioned it earlier. We call it Sierra Hotel, SH. And basically what that means is shit hot. And that translates to just that, badass. All right. February 1967, he's transferred to the 335th Helicopter Assault Company with the 173rd Airborne. Anybody from the herd here? Anybody? No? Okay, another very proud unit. Still in Vietnam again. Sierra Hotel. We're not talking about an ordinary guy. This is somebody who did exactly what his country expected on the line and in such a young age. June 1968, Charlie was sent to Germany for 7 months before returning back to Vietnam in February of 1969. I haven't quite confirmed this yet, but I think there may have been a couple dates with a young lady around that time. No, later. She's
1978.
78. Okay.
May 29,
Where's my pen? I'm gonna write that down. Okay, I gotcha. So when he gets back from Germany, he goes back to Vietnam for his second tour. This is not something that was expected of people during that time period. Teller's transferred ultimately to, he reported as, again, a Huey crew chief with the 128th Helicopter Assault Company, 12th Combat Aviation Group of the 1st Aviation Brigade. Anybody with the 1st Aviation Brigade here today? No? Okay. All right. Well, that covers that. Again, this is the premier aviation unit in Vietnam during that time. Sierra Hotel. Charlie was then transferred to the H Troop, Hotel Troop of the 17th Cav. I know I'm reaching here. Anybody? 17th Cav? No? Okay. What's that? I'll lift them all. God bless them. Yeah, that's what we like to hear. So after a hiatus, he goes back to Vietnam for, again, his third tour, and ultimately spends the last 3 months with a International Commission for Control and Supervision, the ICCS. For those of you who don't know the ICCS, it was a group that was brought back alive after the Paris Peace Accords to monitor the groups, the withdrawal of the United States from the Vietnam War. Upon returning back to the States, he was trained as a military police officer, specifically in the corrections unit at Fort Gordon, Georgia. This would come into play later on when he meets me. Charlie was subsequently redesignated as a utility cargo aircraft technician, technical inspector, this time with fixed airplanes. So his military training and occupation was transitioning from rotary wing to fixed wing in the end of his tour. So after all said and done, ultimate separation was made in August of 1985, and during that time, I believe 20 active and then some additional years, Charlie received the following. And I wrote these down because I thought they were very specific for everyone to understand just exactly who we're talking about today. Charlie received the Bronze Star with an oak leaf cluster, which means he was awarded twice. He was awarded the Meritorious Service Medal, the Air Medal with 9 oak leaf clusters. He received the Air Medal 9 times. The Army Commendation Medal with an oak leaf cluster, again, awarded twice. The Good Conduct Medal with silver class, which means he was awarded 6 times. I know. Charlie, the Good Conduct Medal, 6 times? I had to read that over myself, over and over. I was like, hold on, let me double check that. Candace, hey, what do you got going on here? He received the Humanitarian Service Medal with a Bronze Star attachment, awarded twice. National Defense Service Medal. How many veterans here? I see our uniform vet, other military veterans here. Most of us have that, right? Most of us have that NDSM. The NCO Professional Development Ribbon with the 3 attachment, which means he was awarded for 3 separate professional development courses. He received the Army Service Ribbon, the Overseas Service Ribbon, the Republic of Vietnam Campaign Ribbon with the device 1960. He received the Presidential Unit Citation, the Meritorious Unit Citation, the Vietnam Gallantry Cross with Palm Unit Citation. He also received the RVN, the Republic of Vietnam, Civic Action Honor Unit Citation with Palm. He received the Aircraft Crewman Badge with those wings that he had posted just about everywhere in his office. Most of us have seen those. He received the Combat Infantry Badge, the CIB, and also an Expert Badge with his pistol bar. After that, Charlie ultimately ends up in Watsonville, working for Two Genes, and which ultimately became, I think, Santa Cruz Aviation before he went into business with Chuck. Now it's that building is now Pacific Air Care. If many of you can think back to when that was. I'm probably dating myself. Nonetheless, this was where I met him in the late 80s, somewhere. I don't remember specifically the date. But I was a police officer in the city of Watsonville, and one day I'm cruising out on the ramp in my patrol car, and I see this beautiful warbird, which later I found was a trainer, a T-28 Trojan. Everybody knows what that is. Probably not, but... and of course I was interested, because I knew that one day I had wanted to become a pilot. In my military time, I was usually on a one-way trip in the military and had to find my own way home, which usually came in the form of my shoes. But was interested because I thought the guys in aviation had it made. Anyways, Charlie was always friendly to me, willing to answer all those nerd-type questions about the T-28. It didn't take long to learn that he was an ex-service member and fellow military policeman, which is also the occupation I served in the United States Army prior to my law enforcement career. Our bond built as I learned that Charlie had trained as an MP at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and we started comparing dates, and we found out that my father had also taught at the MP school at Fort Gordon around the same time Charlie was there. They never knew each other in the military, subsequently met later on in life, but I thought that was an interesting thing. But it was just another aspect that brought Charlie and I's relationship closer together. One day, while I was on duty, again, loafing off at the airport, cruising around in my patrol car, I spotted Charlie on a ramp and went over and struck up a conversation with him. We never actually talked about our rank in the military before, and I happened to see on his toolbox a pair of captain's bars. And I thought, my gosh, Charlie. So I asked him, I go, hey, Charlie, were you an officer? Oh my God, bleepity, blipping, flipping, flapping. He just went off, and God, what do I look like? You know, my hands are, you know, and I work for a living, and he just went, and I'm standing there in uniform thinking, this guy's cussing out a cop. That's Sierra Hotel there. Yeah, how many people do that? And I thought, what? And this goes on a tirade for a couple minutes. Any military veterans? You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Yes. Okay. So all I could do is stand there and say, hey, I'm sorry. You know, and he stopped and he threw up his hands. And he smiled and he said, don't worry about it. And, you know, a conversation I had with Candace earlier on, that was one of the characteristics Charlie had, is that he never stayed mad long. You know, he'd jump on your you know what and then get over it. As years went on, our friendship grew. And it's funny, a quick story, the girls at Zuniga's, before it became Ellie's, would call the police dispatch and tell them, hey, send Randy out to pick up Charlie. This would generally go on a regular basis between 10:30 and 12:30 at night. And it just became a matter of routine. And I would show up on the ramp, I'd pull up, and my overhead lights going, and I could see inside the restaurant all the patrons. And just as a matter of on cue, Charlie would jump up and start yelling expletives about, oh my God, the police finally caught up with me. And he'd stumble out to the car and he'd jump in the back seat and off we would go. And, you know, looking back, I can only imagine the show that these people must, oh my God, what's happening? We're never coming back to Watsonville again, oh my God. Nonetheless, I thought that too was a little bit of Sierra Hotel. Come to think of it, those were probably our best conversations. We're taking him home those nights, you know. So, for those of who knew Charlie well, you knew that that's usually how most of his nights ended up at Zuniga. So, we're happy about that. Everybody here is here because Charlie was a very lovable man with a huge heart filled with tons of kindness. He once told me, this example of his kindness, he once told me that somebody had borrowed an oil filter from him. And I thought, oh my God. Charlie, for those mechanically inclined, an oil filter is a one-time gig. It's not something you borrow. And I thought, how do you borrow an oil filter, for Pete's sakes? And he used to tell me that story all the time. But the fact of the matter is another testament to his characteristic traits, and that he had a hard time telling people no because he had such a kind heart. We should not be discouraged by Charlie's death, but only encouraged by his life and how he touched each one of us. Today's a celebration of life. I think that to honor Charlie, our friend, my friend, we should go on and continue to live ours. Again, I'm Randy Pichet. I am Charlie's friend, and I always will be. And God bless every single one of you for coming out here today. I look forward to seeing most of you, if not all of you, at Ella's. I understand Charlie's got some family here, which I'm looking forward to meeting. And again, thank you. Love you, Charlie.
Ready? Thank you. Thank you for that. This concludes the services we have here today at the shelter. Family would like to invite anyone who would like to view his interment to immediately follow us down to section 1. And the directions there's a stop sign right behind you. You'll make a left and go down about half a block. I know all of you are parked here, so it might be a walk down. And then turn right and you'll walk into section 1. At that point, we'll begin the interment, and you're welcome to continue sharing there if you'd like, and we will lay him in his final resting place. Okay, thank you.